Hello everyone, my name is Christian. Welcome back to Tekpon. Today our guest is Justin, the Director of Marketing Operations at 360learning. Hello.
Hello, Christian. Glad to be here with you.
Thank you for joining the podcast. For anybody that doesn't know yet, please tell us what is 360learning.
360learning is a learning management system for corporations. We were founded in 2013 in France, but we operate today in 4 global markets, including in North America. And main difference that 360learning has in the LMS market, which is a pretty crowded space, is that most LMSs today are really focused on pushing content top down, whether that's off-the-shelf content, third-party content, or content that is created strictly by a learning and development team. But it's very much, somebody out there creates content and it's pushed to learners in a top-down way, and the learners just consume that content in a passive way. And I think the main innovation that is at the heart of 360learning is they recognize that the real important knowledge in a corporation is with the experts. It's the subject matter experts. It's the people that are actually doing that work that have the important knowledge that other people on that team really need to know. So the key unlock is by enabling those experts to actually share that knowledge with each other. And that's what we mean by collaborative learning. It's involving learners, not just as learners, but also as content creators. And I think that's one of the reasons the company's been so successful.
I love that. So is this the biggest problem that you solve?
Yeah, it's one of the key problems that we solve. There's a lot of problems in the learning and development space. So another big innovation, which is something that just launched fairly recently with a company that we acquired, is a new focus on skills. So we kind of the way I think about this more from a marketing angle is marketers struggle to understand the impact that they're having. And so we focus a lot on attribution, what's working in marketing. Skills to me is kind of like the attribution for learning and development. What's the actual impact that this learning is having? And the way we understand that is by looking at what are the skills that our people have, what are the gaps, what are the trainings that we can put out that can close those gaps, and then did we succeed? So it really brings an impact orientation into the learning process.
Right. And I saw on your website that you have multiple products. Maybe can you walk us through them or the most used?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there's a ton of different use cases, probably more than I can accurately explain.
Yeah.
But we have, a core LMS product that's more about managing learning, tracking course completion for things like compliance. We have our academies, which is really focused on allowing people, that expert-driven process to take place. We have a coaching product, which can be used, particularly for sales enablement use cases where we can, record people giving a pitch and have their coach give them feedback, stuff like that. The skills product I mentioned. And then we also have a live solution, which is allowing us to coordinate in-person training along with virtual training side by side. So really across that product suite, the goal is to have an all-in-one solution where people can manage all their training in one place.
That's great. Hey there, fellow marketers. Are you tired of juggling multiple platforms for meetings, webinars, and calendar bookings? It can be a nightmare just setting up a simple team meeting. But what if I told you there's a platform that is super user-friendly and can do all of this? Well, say hello to Sessions. More than just a Zoom alternative, Sessions is like having a personal assistant for all your meetings. It provides meeting notes, makes it easy to share documents and screens, distills key points for quick overviews, and makes it easy for everyone to work on one board. One reviewer raved about Sessions saying, quote, "In a world where remote work and virtual meetings are becoming the norm, Session stands out as a platform that takes video conferencing to the next level." End of the quote. Ready to give your meetings and webinars a professional edge instantly? Click the link in the show notes or head over to sessions.us today and try it out for free. That's sessions.us. Don't miss out on a platform that will soon be a leader in the meeting space, allowing you to have better online interactions. Visit sessions.us today. Now, let's get back to the episode. And do you have a customer success story that you can share with us?
I think there's a few
maybe
case
without
studies
giving any names.
There's a few case studies that I've looked at. So yeah, one great example. You can just edit out my Googling here, hopefully. One great example is a company that we work with called Aircall. They were like many SaaS companies, were going through a really rapid period of growth. They don't have a huge L&D team. In fact, they only had one full-time L&D manager at that time, and they were able to onboard 40 new hires a month by scaling out their onboarding program with 360 Learning. So kind
Wow.
of a testament to how much you can scale things out when you have the right kind of platform that can, automate a lot of
Wow.
that process and bring that learning together in one place.
And usually, what's your target company? What's your ideal customer profile?
We have a pretty broad market. It's a pretty horizontal product because so many different. I mean, every company needs learning pretty much. We actually tend to stay away from higher ed in some markets and from government in some markets, but generally speaking, almost every industry, over 100 employees, is kind of our sweet spot. And increasingly, some larger companies. We have a lot of larger brands like LVMH in France, and just trying to think of what brands I am and am not allowed to say. Let's just say we increasingly have a lot of larger enterprise customers as well.
Okay, but how about the LMS space? How competitive is it, and how is 360 Learning different?
It's a very competitive space. It's a crowded market. There's a lot of different players. I think the three areas that we're really innovating in and that differentiate us. Number one, the focus on experts and collaborative learning. We're really one of the only players that I'm aware of that's bringing that message, and that is really focused on engaging subject matter experts into the process. And that I think is the most powerful differentiator, because that's what makes the learning, truly relevant and impactful. And that's the learning that you can't go buy it off the shelf somewhere else. It's unique to your company. You're the only one that has it. AI, everyone's talking about AI. We've made huge investments in AI over the past year, and I think really are leading the way there in terms of using AI to enable more efficiency, to automate certain parts of course creation, to be that assistant, that co-pilot to the L&D leader and help them do more with less. And then third is the focus on skills. I think that's huge, and we already talked about that a little bit. But bringing skills in and really bringing an impact orientation and a mindset around how are we actually impacting business results, not just shipping more training.
Right. And I'd love to know what do you do as your role today? How does your day-to-day look like? And the team that you manage?
Yeah. So I lead the marketing operations team. My scope includes both marketing ops and BDR operations. So we do the ops support for our business development team, which is we have 6 global BDR ops teams. So really, when I think about my role, and the role of my team, it's about maximizing the performance of our marketers and our BDRs. And we do that in 3 ways. Obviously, tools, technology is a big part of that, but so is process. And figuring out what are the best ways to do things. How can we be more efficient? Are we working well, together internally? And then the third piece is around insights and performance. So delivering insights back to the business, but not just doing that in a kind of service provider way, but really looking at those insights and then using them to generate performance improvement initiatives and really acting as kind of a performance management coach back to the business. So that's in a nutshell. And then on my team, I have still a relatively small team. I have a marketing ops manager and a BDR ops manager that kind of manage those 2 scopes. I also have another hat as a content creator. So I also create a podcast called RevOps FM, which is separate to my work at 360 Learning, but kind of a way and an outlet for me to chat with a lot of smart people like what you're doing here, and just kind of improve my own learning and share more knowledge at scale as well.
When exactly did you start the podcast?
I started that in September, and it's a lot of work, as you know, doing a podcast, booking the guests, creating the episodes, editing it. But it's been a ton of fun. It's enabled me to have conversations with a lot of people that maybe I wouldn't otherwise speak to. I really, I go where I'm curious, so whether that's somebody that is like an individual contributor that's just really crushing it and is very innovative in what they're doing, or whether that's a founder, has created a $1 billion company. I kind of go all over the place, and I interpret RevOps very, very broadly and take a sort of GTM lens. So there's very, very few boundaries. I speak to whoever I like, and it's, I think, been well received because of that. Because I think, as you know, when you're interested in what you're doing and what you're talking about, then you create interesting content, and it vibes with people, and that's what I found.
And usually, who are the people listening to the podcast, or what do you say to the audience looking to listen to an episode?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's broadly, revenue operations professionals. It's sort of hard to get exact figures and stats on who's listening to a podcast, but based on the people that I see commenting, based on the people that have reached out to me and said, "Oh, I really, really like this episode," it is sort of people in the marketing ops, rev ops space, but also people in sales, also people more broadly in marketing. I have a Substack as well, so I get some insight on who comes in. So I think people that the mission that I've set for the podcast is like figure out what's working and go to market. Like really just understand. Go past the hype, past the buzzwords, past all the showmanship that we see sometimes on social media, and just understand like what actually works and take a curious mindset to that. And I think that's relevant to pretty much anybody that's in GTM.
Nice. I love that mission. I'm curious now, when do you think a company should start thinking of a solution like 360 Learning? What exactly is the process?
I guess as soon as you have people that need to learn, so maybe not at 2 people, but I think even for a relatively small company, particularly when you need to scale knowledge, similar people that are in similar roles. So if you're an agency, you may be a relatively small agency, 10, 15 people, but if you have of those 15 people, 10 of them are consultants that do a pretty similar job and have similar knowledge requirements, I think a tool of some kind to scale that learning is really, really important. I come from an agency background myself, and I saw the learning tool that we used wasn't great, but you really need a way to capture that knowledge and scale it out, because otherwise you start having inconsistency. Same with sales. Generally speaking, 100 people is like the start of our sales-led motion, but we do have a product-led motion for companies that are smaller than that. And we see companies,
That's great.
From 10 people and up using the product.
Okay, that's super valuable. Glad I asked that. And when exactly did you join 360 Learning?
Just over 2 years ago. So I joined in January of 2022.
Okay, and what did you say was your biggest challenge since joining the company?
So I mentioned I had an agency background. I was at a marketing ops focused agency for about 7 years prior to that. I wanted to go back in-house just to get closer to the business side of things, to have more of an impact on strategy, to have more long-term ownership of kind of one business situation. And I've gotten that, and that's been a lot of fun. I think the challenges, 360 is a great company and we have a great working culture. I think as with any company, that's especially one that's growing, there's always challenges of prioritization. It's not unique to this environment, but it's just something that's inherent in the job. You have a million places you can focus. You have a million things that people are asking you to do. And you need to make difficult choices about what is most important, what is going to bring the most impact. And so what success looks like can vary from environment to environment, depending on the expectations of your stakeholders. But one of the things I like about 360 Learning is, even for ops, success is still very much performance oriented. We're here to help the business perform better, and we're judged in that way. And so that's great, but that also, that brings challenges in terms of evaluating everything that you have to do, cutting through the noise, identifying what's truly most important. And it's difficult from a more of a consultant service provider model where, a client comes in, gives you requirements, and fulfilling those requirements is what success looks like. And the end customers typically, at least in my space, was more responsible for results. So that's been a shift, but it's been an enjoyable one for me.
But how big is the overall team?
Marketing ops or in marketing more generally?
Just the big team, the overall team.
At 360, we're close to 400 people now. So sort of a, scale up, still relatively early stage, but not just a young startup anymore. And it's that interesting inflection point right. where, we're trying to scale. We develop repeatable solutions. We want, to do things right and prepare for the next stage of growth. And
what can you tell us about the go-to-market strategy of 360 Learning? How does it work? What are, let's say, insights on that?
Yeah, I mean, we have a great marketing team. Inbound marketing's been a huge part of our success. We operate in 4 global markets, which is also kind of interesting. So started in France, but work also in the UK, in Germany, and in North America. And one of the things that I really respected and appreciated about 360 Learning is that they take bold bets when it comes to marketing. So, give you an example here. The team before I joined produced pretty much a kind of full Netflix style documentary about the onboarding of our first content leader, Joey, when she joined the company, called Onboarding Joey. Actually, won an award or some awards, I believe. It really is kind of like a Netflix style experience. The episodes aren't, the episodes are 5 minutes. They're not, an hour, but there's a whole bunch of episodes, and it really followed her from when she joined the company, what she went through. The pandemic happened, in the middle of that. So it covered the pandemic. And when I first watched it, I thought it was just going to be like this sort of recruitment, puff piece, like to make you feel good about the company. And it really wasn't that at all. It was raw. It had conflict. It showed, the less pretty side as well as the pretty side of the company, when things get messy, when there's disagreements. And after I watched that, I was like, wow, I have to go work at this company, because I felt like I binged the episodes. I felt like I was already working there. And so to me, it's just an example of doing things in a bit more of an innovative way, stepping outside of the box, putting out content that's entertaining, that's educational, that's not just your typical marketing play. I wanted to work in a company that did that. So happy to be doing that.
So happy for you. This is great. I'm curious to know your vision for the future, for yourself, but also for the company.
I think the vision is exciting. It's a world where L&D becomes a more impact-oriented profession. L&D and MOPS actually have a lot in common, in some ways, where quite often they're seen as more of a service-oriented department. They can often be brought in at the end of a process after decisions have been made. And, with MOPS, it's like, hey, come in and implement a tool. With L&D, it's like, hey, come in and build a training. And the vision that 360 Learning has is a world where the L&D is actually hugely impactful, particularly in a world where, we're increasingly focused on upskilling from within, on growing the company through internal mobility. And learning plays a core part of that. But you need to be able to identify, again, what are the skill gaps? Where is the knowledge that can close those gaps? How do we get that knowledge effectively into a training and disseminate it throughout the company? And then how do we tell whether we did a good job? How do we tell whether the skill gap's closed? So we're building the technology that's going to enable that to happen. It's, in many cases that technology is already built. I think that's an exciting future for L&D.
Thank you for sharing. Now we arrived at the last part of the podcast. I want to hear your story and how you started your career. I think it can impact some people listening.
I mean, I'm an English major, so, I started out thinking maybe I was going to be an academic and not very interested in business at all. At a certain point, realized that I did not want to be an academic. And so kind of made the jump from, what can you do with words? So I'm going to be a copywriter, like a business copywriter. And from there made the jump to marketing. And really liked about marketing, that it deals with people's psychology. It deals with understanding their motivations, what they need, what they want, and ideally bringing value to them that addresses those needs. And there's a certain thrill that comes from like understanding, I really need this. You deliver that value and people are like, yes, I love this. That's a really, really rewarding feeling. So went into marketing for that reason. And then at a certain point realized I actually really also have this love for systems, for developing scalable solutions, for bringing order to things and creating structure that can enable other people to do their best work. And this was fairly, this was more than 10 years ago. Marketing ops wasn't even as much of a term that was ready at hand, at least at the beginning of that process. But I kind of fell into that and realized, this is a good career to have here, and went from the startup that I was working at to a marketing ops focused agency, primarily in the Marketo and later the Adobe ecosystem once Marketo was acquired. And spent a long time doing that because it was exciting work. You could really help people implement this complex technology and get value from it, and really sort of developed my career there until the point where, as I mentioned, I felt like, this has been a great run, but I'd like to be more in a business context again, closer to strategy, having more ownership over business decisions and not sort of to be downstream from that, which is something that you experience when you're in consulting. And that's when I made the jump back in-house. I think it's a great time to be in operations. It's becoming an increasingly important part of go-to-market, whether that's MOps or RevOps. And I do think that ideally we should be converging into more of a RevOps or GTM Ops framework. So I think it's a great time to be there. And I think the onus is on us to step up and become kind of the business leaders and the go-to-market leaders that the business needs us to be, move beyond just being technology implementers, but really take on that strategic role.
I appreciate that. And what would be your best piece of advice to somebody that's just looking to start, let's say after finishing college, or to you yourself in your early 20s?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think my approach was always to learn as much as I could, to find the people that seemed to be at the heights of whatever thing that I wanted to learn about, whether that was technical or process or strategic or communication. Find that person that is like the best and then soak up their knowledge like a sponge. And there's a time and a place to like come up with your own stuff. And some people are just very innovative in coming up with ideas. But I really think that you finding the person that has reached that summit that you want to climb, and then they will leave breadcrumbs behind. They will leave knowledge in their wake, usually very generously. And you can just accelerate your learning so quickly by just absorbing that. And then also, experimenting hands-on yourself. But really, people are out there sharing knowledge so generously. So find the smartest, the brightest, the people that seem the most competent at whatever it is that you want to be, and soak that up.
I love that mindset. I love it. I have one last question before we close down. What's your favorite software product you use, but apart from 360 Learning?
I don't actually get to use it anymore, which makes me sad. But my favorite tool that I've used is a tool called Workato. It's in the iPaaS space, integration platform, kind of a competitor to Zapier, but much more of an enterprise grade Zapier. And I love Workato just because it threads that needle between ease of use and kind of user friendliness and power. It's that perfect blend. It gives you a toolkit. And it's everything that I loved about automation and Marketo in the first place, which is that it lets you build workflows declaratively without needing to be a developer that can execute some pretty complicated logic. It does that, but it does it at one level up in the hierarchy of the system. So rather than just within a single application and a little bit influencing things outside, it's actually orchestrating pretty much any application that has an API and creating really complex workflows, manipulating data. You can do anything. And I love tools that are platforms that have, boundaries, but that really are not just saying you can do this one thing and, oh, sorry, we don't have a feature for that, so you can't do that. I love tools that just say, here's a toolkit that lets you do whatever you want. So that's my favorite.
Thank you so much, Justin. You did fantastic, and I'm grateful that you joined the podcast.
Thanks, Christian.
Thank you.
Appreciate being on.